And are you going to pop? Just want to wear it like perfume. Ready. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're making my favorite bread of all time and the easiest one to make at home. We're making focaccia. Focaccia. I make this focaccia recipe at least once a week. It is so easy to make. All it needs is time. We basically mix the ingredients together and pop it in the fridge to prove overnight. We're gonna get started with 400 grams of warm water, so just above room temperature. You don't want it to be too hot that it's gonna kill your yeast, but warm enough that it's gonna bring it to life. Then we're gonna pop in a teaspoon of caster sugar, or any kind of sugar, and this just helps feed the yeast. And then I've got 4 grams of instant yeast that I'm just gonna sprinkle gently on the top. Then we're just gonna let this rest for about 5 minutes until the yeast gets all bubbly. Our yeast has just started to get nice and foamy, and you can see it bubbling up from the bottom, which is just so cool. Next, we've got a teaspoon of salt. I'm using pink Himalayan salt, it's my favorite. And 500 grams of plain flour. I'm just using regular bog standard flour. Careful it doesn't splash out. Then we're gonna bring this together with a fork, so just kind of mix it together until all of the flour is incorporated. All of my flour is incorporated, and this is a really sticky dough, which is good because it's full of moisture. So I'm just gonna scrape any bits off the fork, and I'm gonna let this sit for about 15 minutes, and that just helps the gluten relax a little bit. Just cover it with a tea towel. See you then. So it's been 15 minutes. I think it's super fascinating the way the texture of the dough changes in just 15 minutes. Like it becomes a bit more stringy, and it's gonna be so much easier to handle. Now we're gonna give it a good drizzle of olive oil. I never really measure this. I kind of just do about 2 tablespoons or a good big fat glug. And then I'm just gonna mix the oil in with my hands, and the oil's gonna make it really easy to handle. So I'm just gonna kind of almost press the oil in until it's pretty much incorporated. Honestly, look at this. Look how it changes in just 15 minutes. It's so like lovely and stringy, and it feels nice and soft. Isn't it fascinating? You wouldn't have been able to do this 15 minutes ago. And then I'm just gonna lift the whole thing and just try and shape it into a bit of a ball just so it sits nicely in the bowl. So we just kind of squeeze the bottoms under. If it starts to get a bit sticky, just stop there, or you can add a little bit more oil on your hands. But that'll do, and we'll pop our lovely soft dough back into our bowl. I just love the feeling. And then we're gonna glad wrap this. And then we're gonna pop this in the fridge to prove overnight. And here's one I prepared earlier. I've always wanted to say that. And you can see it's lovely and bubbly, and it's risen, and it's actually really cold, which is perfect for handling. Now it's time to whack it into a tray. So I've just got a metal tray here. I will leave the measurements for this down below, and we're gonna give this a good coating of olive oil. So about 2 tablespoons again here. And then I'm also gonna drizzle my hands a little bit too, and this just means that I can handle the dough. So I'm just gonna rub there a little bit. And then we're gonna pick up our dough. So with nice greasy oily hands, we're just gonna kind of go around the outside and reshape it in a ball like we did before. I don't know why, I just love the feeling of this dough so much. It's like really smooth. Then our lovely ball of dough, we're gonna pop this into our tray. Press it down a little bit, and then we're gonna flip it over to coat both sides in oil. Just give that a little rub around the edges just to make sure there's oil everywhere. And I'm just gonna give it a little press down. You can be quite firm here, and we're just gonna press it into the direction that you want it to prove in. So we are gonna let it rise, but it's much easier for it to rise into the places you want if you've kind of pressed it in that direction. Oh yeah. Right, let's cover this with Glad wrap, and that's just gonna stop our dough from drying out and create a nice little warm climate inside here. Then it's time to let this prove. So we want to let it prove until it comes to room temperature. So it's quite cold in here today, so I'm probably going to let it sit for about 2 hours. But if it's nice and warm in your house, you might leave it for about an hour. And you want it to have risen really nicely into the edges and be nice and bubbly. It has been 2 hours. This focaccia looks beautiful and jiggly, and I'm so excited. I love focaccia so much. Oh my gosh, look at this. And it's got such a good jiggle. It's so jiggly. Right, I've got my oven preheating to 220 degrees Celsius. Now it's time to dimple this focaccia. We are gonna use a little bit more oil. And what I'm gonna do is drizzle my hands and also just drizzle a little bit around the edges, and then I'll kind of be able to spread it with my hands. So get my hands and then a little bit around the edges. Oops, maybe a lot of it. Right, I'm just gonna rub this oil all over my fingertips. Then we're gonna press really nice and deeply down into the focaccia. And you wanna get right to the bottom, and then it's gonna help some of that oil get in all those lovely divots. Oh my gosh, it feels amazing. This is like the best feeling in the world. Now you will get lots of bubbles pop up. We don't want to have too many bubbles because they might crisp and burn, so you can kind of pop some of them. Then I've got a bench scraper. You can also use a knife. I'm just gonna rub a bit of my oily fingers on it, and I'm just gonna cut around the edges, and this just helps the oil get down the sides and gets nice and crispy and stops it from sticking. Now this is ready to bake. When your oven gets to temperature, this is gonna go in for about 25 minutes until it's beautifully golden brown. I actually like to put mine closer to the bottom of the oven just so it gets a really nice crispy base. And you can totally jazz your focaccia up at this point. You could shove some tomatoes in there, some garlic cloves, some rosemary, but I'm just gonna keep mine plain and simple and jiggly. It smells so good in here. The focaccia is ready. I just let it cool for about 25 minutes in the tin, and that just makes it a bit easier to take it out of the tin, but it's still warm and it's time to eat it, and I'm flipping excited, and I'm gonna take it out. I've just got a little offset spatula. This is gigantic. A gigantic offset spatula just to help get it out a bit, but you could use anything. Oh yeah. The best thing about focaccia is it's almost like moist. Can bread be moist? I got the knife stuck in the board. Look at those bubbles. Oh my gosh, it's so lovely and spongy, but also so light. Ooh, let's cut a slice to eat. I am hungry. And when you're having a slice of focaccia, you always need a fat slice. Look at this. You ready to eat it? Why don't I eat that much? It's so good though. Look how light and fluffy it is. There's so much in my mouth. 1 second. If you don't want to eat all of this straight away, what I like to do is kind of cut half of it into sandwich chunks and then the other half into like slices, and then I eat them for toast instead of toast every day. My favorite way right now is ricotta, roasted mushrooms, heaps of balsamic vinegar. The absolute dream. I hope that you start making this every single week too. It is so easy, so delicious, such a game changer. So yummy. That really is the best bread ever.